John first noticed the charging station because half of its sign was broken. The words phone charging were missing two characters. From a distance at night, it looked like it said hand light, as if they were selling flashlights instead. A transfer notice was taped to the door, the white paper wrinkled from rain, like a rag no one bothered to throw away. He stood outside the glass window and counted the power banks lying behind the counter. 9 in total. A thin layer of dust had crusted over their plastic shells. The owner was dozing on the counter while an old radio played songs from 20 years ago. At that moment, John remembered what Warren Buffett once said, "Be greedy when others are fearful." He reached into his pocket and touched his bank card, its edges already frayed. "Want to take a gamble together?" he asked Leo that night at a roadside food stall. Leo was using disposable chopsticks to pry open a beer bottle, the tip splintering from the pressure. "Gamble on what? We don't even have chips." "We collect the deposits first, then use the deposits to buy inventory. Borrow someone else's wolf with empty hands." John broke down the idea piece by piece. Customers scan a code to borrow a power bank and pay a 99 WAN deposit up front. After returning it, they get the deposit back. The deposit pool becomes the money for new stock. As long as turnover is fast enough, it's like watering your own flowers with someone else's water. Leo chewed grilled chives in silence, bitterness spreading to the corner of his mouth. "What if the pool leaks?" "Then we patch it first, then keep pouring water in." John pushed the beer toward him. "Are you in?" Leo drew a line on the greasy tablecloth with his thumb, like marking a starting line for himself. "I'm in." They scraped together 30,000 WAN and took over the half-dead shop. The former owner tossed the keys onto the counter as lightly as flicking away a cigarette butt. The warehouse was on the top floor of an urban village building, with a tin roof that turned into a steamer in summer. At night, the two lined up newly delivered power banks in a row, their plastic shells glowing cold white under a single bulb. 1, 2. Leo counted softly as if afraid of waking someone. When he reached 100, he shook his hands, sweat slick between his fingers. John wrote the date on the cartons with a marker, then clipped the pen behind his ear, like tucking an arrow in place. On opening day, the entrance was quieter than a funeral. The convenience store owner nearby watched them with a toothpick in his mouth. "Free to borrow? Who are you fooling?" John said nothing. He pulled out his own phone, scanned the code in public, and a power bank popped out with a click. He slipped it into his pocket like a street magician swallowing a sword. At noon, a delivery rider hesitated before walking over. "It's really free. Just the deposit. You get it back when you return it," John said, slowly and clearly. The rider scanned, paid. His movements were as cautious as defusing a bomb. Ding. Payment received. At that soft sound, the hairs on the back of John's neck stood up. He looked at Leo, whose fist was clenched so tight it creaked, as if crushing something invisible. By evening, they checked the numbers. 7 borrowed, 3 returned. Over 400 WAN sat in the deposit account, like someone secretly slipped warm coins into their pockets. That night, their small truck drove across the city. The windows were rolled down. The wind cut their faces like blades. They delivered power banks to 3 more convenience stores. The boxes thumped against the truck bed. Thud, 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 like an amplified heartbeat. 10 more stores and we'll have enough for the next batch. 20 more and we can hire someone else to run deliveries. 50 more. And we'll sit on the rooftop counting money. They both fell silent at the same time, afraid the wind might steal their words. In the second week, a competitor arrived. The name was Flash Charge Hero. Posters flooded the streets. 1 yuan per hour, half the deposit. John stood beneath a utility pole, staring up at the red and yellow poster like it was mocking him. He tore it down. The glue was still wet, sticking to his fingers. The paper ripped with a harsh sound, leaving a white scratch across his knuckles. Back at the warehouse, he threw the crumpled poster on the ground and stepped on it. Leo crouched nearby, stacking 1 WAN coins into neat piles like loading bullets. "Do we match their price?" "No." John's throat was dry. "Once you cut prices, you'll never raise them again." "Then what?" "Let them burn cash. We'll borrow." He went to the supplier with printed deposit records, a thick stack like a savings book. "I'll pay 30% now, the rest in 2 weeks." The supplier wore a thick gold chain that glittered blindingly. "Kid, why should I?" "Because I have users. They've deposited money with me. They can't just walk away." The supplier flicked the papers, making them snap. 2 weeks, 10% interest. 5, 8, 6, or I go elsewhere. The supplier smiled like he was looking at a puffed-up cat. Deal. For 2 weeks, they spun like tops whipped by a lash. By day, they restocked. By night, they hauled boxes. John set his alarm for 4 a.m., rising at the first ring. The wooden floor creaked like an old man coughing. On the 13th day, the competitors' posters vanished overnight. Machines were dragged away in the dark, salaries unpaid, funds gone. John didn't smile. He stepped outside and looked at the sky. Bright blue, clouds drifting like torn cotton. He felt the clouds were like deposits too, returned upward by the wind. At month's end, they closed their books. Nearly 200,000 yuan lay in the deposit pool, like a well that refilled itself. "What's next?" Leo asked. "Dig the well wider." They recruited franchisees, collected brand fees, pressed copy on their own model. The warehouse grew. 2 cars now fit outside. 1 year later, the sign was new, the lights bright. John sat behind the counter, a live map on one screen, rolling numbers on the other. The former owner stopped outside the glass, touched it, pulled his hand back. That night, alone in the warehouse loft, a fan turned slowly. Water rippled in a paper cup. John read on. He didn't look up. The surface was still. The well beneath kept growing. If you want to understand how capital really moves, not what's shown on the surface, subscribe to Smart Capital Lab. We don't chase noise. We study the system.